Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the regular meeting of the Audit Committee for the City of Minneapolis. It's August 27th, and with me here on the dais is Commissioner Chris Meyer, Mr. David Fisher, Vice Chair Mr. Scott Neal, and Councilmember Schrader. Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum, and I'd like to move adoption of the agenda before you today. Let's see. Yep, it covers the addition that we talked about last week. So I will move both that as well as acceptance of our minutes from our last meeting, which was June 11th.
Second? Second?
All those in favor say aye. Aye. And that carries. First, we welcome the State Auditor's Office and Ms. Stephanie Erickson to present our annual review of the State Auditor's work at the city, at the Park Board, and with MBC. Ms. Erickson, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Palmisano and members of the Audit Committee. My name is Stephanie Erickson, and I'm with the State Auditor's Office, and I'm here to present the results of our audits of the City of Minneapolis, the Municipal Building Commission, and the Park Board. Finance isn't here today, but I'd like to just publicly thank them for their time and cooperation during our audit, as we do take a lot of time from their normal daily duties. We audited the City of Minneapolis, the Municipal Building Commission, and the Park Board for the year ended December 31st, 2017, and we issued our opinion for both the City and the Park Board, and our opinion is included in both of their annual financial reports. We performed our audits in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, government auditing standards, and uniform guidance. Our opinions for both the City and the Park Board were dated July 9th, 2018, and like I mentioned, they're in both of their respective financial reports. Our opinions for both the City and the Park Board were unmodified, which is a clean opinion. It's the best that can be issued, and it means that the financial statements are fairly presented and conform with applicable accounting standards. We also audited the City's federal awards and have issued our opinion on compliance for the major programs that we audited. The opinion on each of the City's major federal programs was unmodified, and this means that the City has complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements that were direct and material to each of those federal programs that we looked at. The Park Board and MBC both had federal expenditures as well, but neither one of them hit the threshold that required a single audit, so we did not audit federal programs for either the Park Board or the Municipal Building Commission, and their expenditures are included in the City's schedule of expenditures of federal awards. Throughout our audit, any findings related to internal control, compliance, Minnesota legal compliance, or related to federal programs, either internal control over compliance or compliance. Any of these findings were discussed with the respective management and staff where we found those issues. And at the end of our audits, we discussed the written findings, those that are included in our management and compliance report, which you have received copies of. And we discussed those findings in detail with each respective entity, so with both the City, MBC, and the Park Board. Our management and compliance reports include a summary schedule of prior audit findings and a corrective action plan, both of which are provided by management, either of the Park Board or the City. The summary schedule of prior audit findings lists the findings that were reported in our prior year annual or our prior year report, and it's a status report of the findings from the previous year and where they're at this year, whether they were resolved, partially resolved, or not resolved. And then the corrective action plan is also management's document, and it's their current year plan for how to resolve our current year findings that we reported. So both of those are in the reports as well. For the corrective action plan, we do not audit the City or the Park Board's response to their current year findings, but we do follow up in the next year's audit to see how those have been resolved or what progress has been made on those findings. In our 2007 management and compliance report for the City, we reported 4 findings. 3 of those were new findings and 1 was a repeat from last year. Our schedule of findings and question costs also include the following about the finding. We issue a statement about the criteria, and that's how we measure the finding, the condition, what the finding actually is or what the issue is, and some additional context which provides some more perspective on the issue, what the effect of the problem is, what it could lead to or what it did lead to, the cause of the finding, and we review this with both City management and Park Board management as well, and then our recommendation as to how to resolve the issue. Our 3 new findings that we reported relate to monitoring of internal controls, a prior period adjustment, and withholding affidavit for contractors, which is also the form IC-134. The finding repeated from the prior year's report relates to uniform guidance, written procurement policies, and procedures. And the city has provided its corrective action plan for these findings, and like I mentioned, we're required to follow up on them in the next year's audit. The Municipal Building Commission did not have any findings, and their management and compliance report is also included with the city's management and compliance report. So they have 2 issued. And then our management and compliance report for the Park Board included 2 findings. One was a new finding and one was repeated from last year. And then we also resolved 1 finding from the Park Board last year. And while I mentioned resolved findings, we did resolve 3 findings from the city last year. One of them being the prompt payment of invoices, which has been reported since 2009. So we were able to resolve that one this year. Any questions?
Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Erickson, just a quick question on the corrective action plan. The responses here are you verifying that the corrective action has been taken, or are you just acknowledging that somebody told you the action has been taken?
In the following year, we'll verify if that corrective action was taken.
Right.
So we don't audit this year's, but we'll look into it next year.
I'm looking at the corrective action plan for 2017.
Okay?
So those are corrective actions you and your team would have verified, right?
Those are what the city plans to do going forward to resolve the findings that we reported.
Okay.
So that's what they're working on this year. And then when we come back for the 18 audit, then we'll look at those to see if they actually did those.
So a couple of them I note have taken place, but a couple of them are forward-looking. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No. Okay.
Are you through?
Yep.
Okay, great. I appreciate your coming to our audit committee as always. Are there other questions from council members about these reports? I had an opportunity to meet with the finance department to speak about these when they were in draft form, so I don't have any more questions or thoughts about it now. I will move to receive and file all 3 of these reports.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you,
Great.
Ms. Erickson and
Thank you.
team. Secondly, I meant to do this at the beginning when we adopted the agenda, but the next item on our agenda is an audit plan amendment, but it might help to refresh your memory about some of the workings of the audit department right now and to refresh our memories of what's on that audit plan. With your permission, I'd like to move to the internal auditor's update report before we then speak specifically about this potential plan amendment. Is that generally acceptable to the people up here? Super. So with us to present that is Ms. Ginger Bigby. Welcome, Director Bigby.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano, Audit Committee members. We have 2 completed audits today, which are IT audit reports, and Chair Palmisano will speak to those later. We have a number of performance audits and consultations in progress. Here to give an update on our performance audits in progress is Uget Lot, who is our senior auditor. Following her update will be Carol Vasiliev, audit manager, who will provide an update on the status of our consultations, IT audits, and projects in progress. Uget?
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Esolate.
Chair Palmisano, Audit Committee members, my name is Ugete Solat, and I'm a senior auditor with the Internal Audit Department. I'm here to provide a status update on 2 ongoing audit projects, the payroll audits and the audit of AEG, the third party that manages the Target Center. We are currently finishing field work for the payroll audit, and I've already communicated a list of potential issues and open items needed to be completed in order to finish field work to management. And the objective of the payroll audit was to evaluate the city payroll processes, identify controls in place to prevent payroll fraud, and most importantly, determine if the controls were appropriately designed and if they're operating effectively. We will continue to work with management to finalize our field work and issue an audit report. We are planning to present the payroll audit report at the October 15 audit committee meeting. Next is AG. So AG is the operator of the Target Center Arena, and they are one of the largest contracts of the city. We just started field work for the AG audit last week, and the objective of this audit is to ensure that select clauses of the contract between AG and the city of Minneapolis relating to the operation of the Target Center are abided by, that AG financial reporting is complete, and that the city's management of the contract is adequate. Part of the field work will be done on site at AEG, and we're also planning to present the audit report at the October 15 audit committee meeting. That concludes the audit projects update, and I will now turn it over to Carol for an update on consultation projects.
Thank you, Mr. Vasiliev.
Madam Chair, Audit Committee, my name is Kirill Vasiliev, and I'm a manager in the Internal Audit Department. And I'm here to talk about consultations in progress and to provide a brief update on IT audit-related projects in progress as well. First, we have started work on the police body-worn camera compliance readiness consultation that we're conducting with the Park Board Police Department. The project will be reviewing the Park Board's department's body-worn camera program for compliance with state statutes. The program started in late 2017, and our goal here is to validate that the program in place is compliant with state requirements prior to the biennial compliance audit that the Park Board needs to go through in 2019. We've had initial planning and scoping meetings with the police department and are planning to really get into field work in October. Our next consultation in progress is the Public Works Fleet Services Model Consultation. The Public Works Fleet Services Division has revised its cost allocation model for how it charges costs to other departments. The prior model has been in place for a little while. Our review for this consultation is to look at the assumptions and estimates that went into the new model and look at the resulting fund balances that are likely to result from implementing this new model, and to provide commentary on whether the assumptions are reasonable and well documented. We've had initial meetings with Public Works staff and reviewed the new model, and for our next steps we need to begin gathering more information from Public Works as to what went into that model and finalize exactly what our review points will be. Next project is our consultation with CPED on their records management program. We're reviewing retention and maintenance processes at CPED to help ensure that their record retention program is well structured and has proper controls. The reason this consultation is relevant is CPED is to be relocating to the new city public service building when it's constructed in 2020. They're supposed to be the first tenant, and CPED has a lot of records that they need to figure out where to move and what to digitize and how. And we've been engaging with CPED and city clerk records staff to understand the current process. And for our next steps, we're working with CPED management to assist them with mapping out their records-related risks and controls across the department so that they're able to have a system in place so that when city records staff advise next steps related to the move, CPED has the structure in place to be able to take those steps effectively. Next, we are working with the Neighborhood Community Relations Group at the city on their 2020 project. The 2020 project is proposing changes to how the city oversees neighborhood city reimbursed funding. The 2020 process is a longer one. It started out with a roadmap earlier this year that we had some comments on. The next steps are public work groups that will provide some recommendations and suggestions that will go up to for city council for a vote. Our role here is to look at ways that internal controls can be improved and oversight can be improved within the different options, and provide that commentary to NCR as they develop their final proposal to City Council. And our final component for this review will be to look at NCR's audit policy to ensure that whatever the final 2020 choice is for how the oversight will be structured, that NCR's audit policy reflects that, captures risks appropriately, and properly controls the oversight that we are able to do for these funds.
Excuse me, Councilmember Schrader. No? Oh, that's okay. Sorry about that.
The last consultation that's currently actively being worked on in progress is the Results Minneapolis project. Results Minneapolis provides City Council with reports from departments on those departments' results. The program is going through a revision right now that's led by the Strategic Planning and Analysis Group that's under the City Coordinator. As departments are being transitioned one by one to the new reporting format, Internal Audit is engaging at 2 points to review and comment on the department goal-setting process, with the idea of identifying opportunities for more meaningful goals and suggesting ways that these goals can better be measured. Our final touch points with each of these departments will be looking at their final reports that are getting presented to City Council in early 2019, again with the idea of, now that we've had a year to measure these goals, are they still reasonable and effective goals to measure, or maybe there's areas of improvement, and to look at places where Results Minneapolis might be able to better integrate with city operations, such as possibly budgeting. Because of the time frame, this consultation will likely not be completed until early 2019, because that's when the final reports are due. With the other consultations I spoke of likely to be presented later this year, either at the October or December committee meetings. And then for Results Minneapolis specifically, we have worked on feedback with the HR department, and we're working on feedback on CPED's goals that are being proposed, and plan to review the goals as another 3 or 4 departments are transitioned to the new format during the course of this year.
Thank you. I do want to interject at this point and just mention to you, I guess out loud, that a lot of the conversations that I've had with my colleagues this year have really been about how we use Results Minneapolis in a consistent and meaningful way. And some of that takes evolving Results Minneapolis. I'm really happy that the audit department and the audit team has been involved in it, because it helps us come up with more measurable, consistent things that we can use to evaluate performance. Something that we are talking about in Budget Committee, which starts later on today, is the opportunity to look at the budget more holistically and dive more deeply into the existing rollover year to year from department to department, instead of just the incremental change. And this will be a part of that. So I just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the consultations that are currently being actively worked on, and I would like to close out by providing an update on the IT audit work in progress. We co-source our audit function by contracting with Backbone Consultants for the IT audit components. Of the IT work that was planned for the year, 3 projects are completed. the business continuity disaster recovery, which was presented earlier this year, and the continuity and access of some city critical IT systems, specifically the traffic control system and the water system, Minneapolis water system. Those are completed and will be presented later today in a closed session. For the other work in progress, the first item here is a review of the police department's new records management system implementation, and it's been a carryover from several years ago. Mainly the complexity and criticality of the system to city operations made implementation timeframes a lot longer than initially planned, so our work couldn't really start until implementation was substantively underway. This system is live as of June, so happily we'll be able to complete field work in the next few months and report the results of this work on the implementation later this year. The middle item here, the separation process, is a consultation with HR on how effective their new employee separation process has been to control access to systems, especially when employees leave city employment. There was an initial review completed earlier the year, and we're waiting for a few more months of data to accumulate under the new system to really close that out. And the final item on here is a plan to review IT's revised third-party risk management process. After initial meetings earlier in the year, no third party had fully gone through the new process, so there wasn't a valid candidate for this consultation to take place. And we're looking at circling back to this project during the fall's risk assessments with IT and seeing what our next steps should be. That concludes updates on the consultations and IT projects in progress, and I'll turn the podium back over to Ginger Bigby.
Any questions on some of the audit work as it is flowing through the process? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Uget and Carol. Another important function of the audit department is following up on open audit issues. The process involves periodic updates with management and the audit team discussing progress. The key purpose is to identify if remediation dates will be missed so that we can address problems ahead of time. When an issue is ready to be closed, management will fill out a memo and attach evidence that they have remediated the issue. Internal audit then reviews the evidence, and if the issue is indeed ready to be closed, then internal audit formally closes those audit issues. Here to provide an update on our issue follow-up, the status of open issues, is Staff Auditor Ethan Ruckheim, who's been doing a great job following up on old audit issues and pulling everything together and helping with tracking. Ethan?
Welcome, Mr. Ruckheim.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Palmisano and members of the committee. My name is Ethan Reckheim, and I'm a staff auditor with the department. I'll be providing a brief update on the status of past audit findings that are currently open. This first slide here gives an overview of the number of issues that are currently being tracked. Currently, we have 52 total open findings, 12 of which are overdue. Overdue findings have passed their expected completion date. This does not mean that progress has not been made on remediating the issue. No findings have been closed since our last audit committee. However, there are a number of findings that we do hope to have closed by the end of 2018.
Mr. Ruckheim, or maybe Ms. Bigby, just from the numbers here, I have a question. Can you explain to me what's the level of risk, like in aggregate, for all of these open audit issues? Something that is new as we continue to, new in the past couple of years, as we continue to track open issues and represent them in every audit committee, which theoretically helps them get a little more attention and get to completion. But in terms of risk for our city, did you want to speak to that a little bit, or Ms. Bigby?
Chair Palmisano, audit committee members. We have not assessed a level of risk to prior audit issues. We plan to do so going forward. So we will establish a risk ranking table that will determine low, moderate, or high risk ratings for any audit issue. We plan to apply that beginning January 2019. The reason why it's going to be a few months out is because we work with management to establish the criteria across multiple risk categories, such as financial risk, operational risk, strategic risk, reputation risk. Management and audit agree on the criteria for the different ratings because ultimately they own the risk appetite for their programs or departments. So hopefully January 2019 going forward, we'll be able to have the risk rating for all of our issues.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thoughts or questions? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bigby, perhaps you can answer this. I just noticed there's 12 overdue items here, some more than others overdue. How much risk is involved with these overdue matters? Is there reason for concern there?
Chair Palmisano, Committee Member Fisher. A couple of those overdue items are from older reports from 2013, 2014. We believe that some of those are very close to being remediated. So we have an initiative underway to work with management and see if the evidence actually already exists to close out some of those older issues. And unfortunately, some of the detail just got lost over time with changes in the department and tracking. For the items that cannot be remediated immediately, we don't believe there is a significant risk that the audit committee should be aware of. We're estimating moderate risk for the very old ones.
These next slides kind of break down the numbers from the previous slide in a little more detail by project. I'm not going to go through line by line, but there are a couple of past audits that I'd like to speak on. The first of which is the application security review. As you can see, it's currently overdue, but management does believe that the finding has been remediated, and we will be communicating with management to get that closed.
Excuse me, Mr. Ruckheim, who is management in an application security review? Is that the CIO and IT office, or is that a different department?
I've been working with, I believe, IT on that.
Okay.
The next is the IT program and project management consultation. This project was a consultation, and formal follow-up will no longer be taking place. Management is in the process of providing an outline for the outstanding items, and then this project will be closed by internal audit. 4 of the currently included overdue figures from the previous slide are from this project. Next is Meet Minneapolis. Meet Minneapolis has communicated that they've remediated 3 of their 4 findings. Prior to the next committee meeting, we'll receive the supporting documentation from Meet Minneapolis. We'll then review those materials to ensure that the actions have been carried out, and we will then close those findings.
I just want to interject here and mention that Mr. Melvin Tennant has asked to both meet with me and then asks to be part of our next audit committee meeting in October. So we'll see how that goes. But yep.
Next, I'd like to provide an update on the state auditor. The audit committee has provided staff direction to us to track findings that are reported by the state auditor. The city of Minneapolis recently received its audit report for 2017. The state auditor reported 4 new findings. There are also 2 recurring findings from previous years. Moving forward, we will receive updates from management on the status of the remediation and then report that to this committee. And that concludes my update on follow-up. Thank you, Chair Palmisano, members of the committee. I'll now turn the podium back to Ginger Bigby.
Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Ethan. Couple of additional items. The citywide risk assessment. We're in the process of ramping up a refresh where we meet with management and discuss their department objectives and goals. It gives us an opportunity to talk about their data collection methods, and encourage cross-departmental communications. We use this citywide risk assessment refresh or update to inform our audit plan. So we base the audits that we plan, and we're going to call it a rolling audit plan so that we can always see 6 to 12 months out what's up on the agenda to keep things in motion. Sometimes things have to be delayed, and sometimes we finish things early, and then we'll go to the next audit on the plan that is informed from this citywide risk assessment. Are there any questions on the risk assessment process? Okay. Internal audit is making progress on an internal quality assurance and improvement program. We expect to implement our first self-assessment in early 2019, and we'll use those results to shore up our processes and hope to have our first peer review a couple of years after that. Professional standards require us to have a peer review once every 5 years. And the self-assessment is derived from the testing that they would do during a peer review. Training, regardless of our experience levels, we need ongoing training and education. Internal audit regularly participates in e-learning, webinars, self-study courses, and opportunities through the Public Sector Audit Center, which is a component of the Institute of Internal Auditors. And finally, we have a staffing update. Here is our intern, Travis Com, to provide a staffing update.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Chair Parmesan and members of the committee. I've been an intern since June with the Internal Audit Department, and at the beginning of August, we did receive a new intern, Danny Hunt.
Welcome, Ms. Hunt.
Hello, Chair Palmisano and committee members. My name is Danny Hunt. I am a senior at the University of St. Thomas studying accounting, and I'm also a resident of Minneapolis. Thank you for having me here.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here and being part of our small but mighty audit department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis and Danny. Chair Palmisano, audit committee members, that concludes the auditor update. Are there any questions?
I'm not seeing any. Did you want to speak to the 2018 audit plan?
Yes, please.
Super.
We'd like to request an ad, a consultation ad to the 2018 audit plan. The consultation is a collaboration with the Minneapolis Police Department and the Office of Police Conduct Review. It's intended to study Minneapolis Police Department recruiting standards and processes.
I do want to just point my colleagues to at the end of the packet in front of you, and a couple slides forward, I think, on your presentation template, there is the 2018 audit plan.
Okay.
I think you're going backwards. Oh. There you go.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Carol. All right. So the consultation that we're requesting be added to the 2018 plan. I wanted to mention that our objectives in this consultation are the key objective is to analyze data sets. Data sets will give consideration to the level of applicants, so whether it's a community service officer applying, a cadet, or a recruit. And then we're also looking at the application processes, which could include resume review, phone and in-person interviews, physical tests, and dropout statistics.
I think it's an appropriate time that we will receive and file the auditor update report after, but since we are talking about this now, I'd like to bring us into item number 4, which is the consideration of this audit plan amendment, if that's permissible to the clerk. Super. So did you have anything else you wanted to say? There's a couple of questions up here.
I have nothing else.
Super. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will this require the addition of this workload? Will this require you to change the other items in the work plan in order to accommodate this? Will you have to delay something or displace something?
Chair Palmisano, Committee Member Neal, we have a scheduling tool now, so we looked at our availability, and we do have capacity in November without changing anything on the audit plan. So we plan to get started in October a little earlier if some of our other projects finish early. Otherwise, we do have capacity to complete the data analytics in November.
A second question I have is regarding the data you're going to be reviewing. Is this data, I know it's early and you haven't started it, but is this an audit that you anticipate you'll be going into the police department and gathering data, or you'll be reviewing data that they provide to you? Is it?
Good question. Probably a combination of both. We'll be working closely with Deputy Chief Art Knight from the Minneapolis Police Department and with Ryan Patrick, law enforcement analyst from the Office of Police Conduct Review. They have data sets available. We probably will have to request additional data sets, and I expect we'll work with HR to get some data sets as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, that was one of my questions, is who are the involved parties here? My understanding is you have already had preliminary conversations with the police department and also the Police Conduct Oversight Commission.
Yes, to agree on the collaborative consultation.
Mm-hmm. Super. Other thoughts, questions? Well, I just want to say I'm glad we were able to find a way to fit this in. Those of you that may have been or seen the presentation given at the Police Conduct Oversight Commission last week, unfortunately, that's not something that's recorded and is able to be easily recalled. But the conversation at last week's Police Conduct Oversight Commission, this was a presentation given actually by a summer intern, is where it started. But the concerns here really come forward in listening to community year after year after year. I think this is a meaningful way to dig into the barriers that prevent more women in our police department, potentially be also preventing more people of color and more other kinds of diversity to be joining our department. Within Results Minneapolis, this is one of the elements that we dig into in other departments, but policing really has its own process. So while it has been a priority for police over the past few years, I don't think that anybody is thrilled with that or could see that we are getting the progress that we've hoped for, despite the efforts of MPD. So yeah, I just wanted to say I do appreciate you finding time. I did want to also ask, one of the elements for 2018 is the grant management city and parks audit, and I noticed this weekend in reading the materials that seems to be a recurring theme from the state auditor as a question or finding from the park board year after year since 2015, I think. That is still something that we would be able to, you think, look into or start that audit as well in 2018?
Chair Palmisano, Audit Committee members, yes, we plan to start that in 2018. We have it on our schedule. Next steps would be to meet with management and agree on scoping and timing, but we do know we can get started in 2018.
Super. I know that is a little bit of a departure. In conversation with the interim superintendent, she did say the body-worn camera program was the priority for her and for the department, but I just didn't want to lose sight of this. So thank you. Without further questions, I would like to consider and I'd like to move approval of this amendment to the audit work plan for 2018. Could I have a second? All right. Without further ado, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. That amendment is approved. Thank you so much for implementing this scheduling tool in pretty quick order, for working on this, and for being able to accommodate this in your already packed plan. Another piece that we need to do is we need to receive and file the auditor update report that we were hearing just prior to this. So I'd like to move that. Could I have a second? Commissioner Meyer seconds it. All those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Ms. Bigby. So the next items on the agenda are the Minneapolis Water Treatment and Distribution System IT audit and the Traffic Signal System IT audit. I'd like to ask Deputy City Attorney Eric Nielsen to help us explain the reason why the meeting should be closed to discuss these agenda items.
Sure. Chair Palmisano, members of the Audit Committee, with regard to these final two agenda items, the Open Meeting Law, Chapter 13D.05, Subdivision 3D, permits the closure of a meeting to receive security briefings and reports, to discuss issues related to security systems, to discuss emergency response procedures, and to discuss security deficiencies in or recommendations regarding public services, infrastructure, and facilities, if disclosure of the information discussed would pose a danger to public safety or compromise security procedures or responses. And so before closing a meeting under this paragraph, the public body, in describing the subject to be discussed, must refer to the facilities, systems, procedures, services, or infrastructures to be considered during the closed meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, I move to adjourn to room 315, which is right across the hall here, to a closed session of the Audit Committee for the purpose of discussing these two matters, the Minneapolis Water Treatment and Distribution System and the Traffic Signal System IT audit. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion having passed by unanimous consent, this committee will adjourn to room 315 to a closed session for receipt of these audits. Thank you.